Okay, here we are in October of '06. What's happened so far? The French took their sweet old time knocking the Austrians out, debated whether or not to continue on into Russia. Prussia made their mind up for them by declaring war, according to the mechanisms in the new rules that I'm like trying to figure out whether or not they actually apply to the multiplayer game. But I groused a hell of a lot about various things. Navally, the French have started doing commerce raiding. Basically what that means is that they've given up on the big breakout, and they're hoping to just reduce English production somehow, or efforts a little bit, rather than, attempting some big invasion. Last time there was an invasion of England, but it was not sufficient by any means and got driven back. I guess that's about it. Some personal fun before I get into the game. I went out for a bit of a walk today. Nothing too huge, just kind of downtown and around a little bit. But I had the thought of maybe bike stores will have the kind of wheel that I need for my cart. Because, I can't find it online, And I've tried hardware stores, not the huge ones. They might have it. That's sort of my next step. Maybe a hardware store, and then maybe a Goodwill or something to look to see if I can get clothing. But yeah, I'm kind of impressed that I made it outside, and made it for a walk. That was kind of cool. But other than that, otherwise, we're sitting here in October. Let's take a look at what the weather chart says. Things are more crowded over here, and I got to be careful. We get good weather all across the board. And now we deal with the Austrians. The only real interesting thing is they get double production. I've been screwing up. I've been sailing across the seas a little too quickly. Some of these are moving point twos here and here. I'm going to just have to be more careful about that. And it's okay. I just moved a couple of ships, and there's something special about the Cape of Good Hope. And I don't remember what it is. But I do remember there is something special. So it's time to start playing hunt and peck through the rules for something. Actions against bases are doubled in effect on the Cape space, which is a big deal because it's one of the few decent maritime trades that I can go hide in. Connects this way. Interestingly, that doesn't apply if Portugal is French. Not really absolutely convinced that, I guess if it was a free state or something, but that the Portuguese colonies would follow a conquest. But it's not French, it's Spanish, it's pro-French, but that's not what it specifies. And I'm going to go with it this way because, again, I'm not absolutely convinced that, Portugal would accede easily. And now I got to think if I want to try some breakouts, and there are some I want to do. Actually, it was kind of exciting. French managed to break the blockade here. The English intercepted them, drove them back into port, but both fleets are damaged. And an attempt to break out here got caught, and the English sunk a French ship. Back over there, the French numbers are really, their numbers game is going very poorly. I guess I can do these. This one's a +2, +3. Ooh, that's big. That's 5. And this one's at +4. That puts another one on 6. So we have force the English to take action again. They have been taking action, but not as much, as they'd be required to. I only have 2 fleets out here, but at this point, I'm free to shift fleets around. I may have trouble though, because the French got kind of a jump on me in the moves. We'll see. Looks good with a 2, but we do have to check. Spain's fine, but the French may have some stacks that are relatively large. I don't think they do. I think I'm keeping things spread out pretty far. Rules were normal, nothing too exciting happening. Spanish rebuilding a fleet that, or a squadron that I didn't know I had damaged. That was back here. French building all cav because they can shuffle them up more quickly. And now we come to the thing that I'm always dreading, which is actually moving the ground units. It's a task. Since I'm super sleepy, it's like an hour past when I've been making my normal bedtime now. Yeah, I know. It's like 4:30. And that in conjunction with the walk and everything, I'm just like, oh God, I just want to lay down. So the French are, don't want to take that. French are focusing their attacks on the Russians. We've gathered there. We gotta knock out their sort of capability there, because now we have to protect the Grand Duchy of Warsaw. We also had to protect our supply line. Poniatowski went out here with the Poles. Had to leave some infantry. These are both going to be those double doinker special attacks. Over here we're trying to attack the English militia. I'm hoping that's morale 0 and not 1. That'll make it almost trivial. And then I'm actually dispatching a leader into Italy to try to deal with the Neapolitan issue. I'm having trouble shifting my leaders around to get them where they belong, where I want them. Oh yeah, and we're also advancing here up in the northwest, where there really aren't any Prussians, but there are things I want to conquer with Dutch forces and whatnot. Alrighty, I guess I can do them in little bits. Before I get to the combat, in Empires at Arms, there's tendencies for there to be periods of years, sometimes a whole year, where nothing is basically happening, which is kind of nice. You can just fly through it. It's kind of like EU. EU has similar periods where it's like, yeah, you're just doing the economy for your 5-year turn, and then you're like, yeah, some exploration and stuff, but we don't want to actually get involved in wars because there's nothing driving them. This game, Empires in Arms has enforced peace, as does EU, which means that like you fight someone and you can't attack them again for a year. In this game and in its predecessor, Napoleon can almost always find something he wants to beat up on. He may have things he has to beat up on, like the Spain and Russia by certain dates and all that. That's going to be a pain in the ass to deal with. But yeah, we're still early in the situation, and it's scripted so that you don't face in this particular version. It's scripted so you don't face Prussia, at least as far as I can tell, until really after you've beaten up Austria, and then they are forced to come in. All right. I'll get to the battles. So I don't actually have to look up in the rolls because there's a little hint on the counters. So for example, I don't know if you can see it. On the flag on this, there's a little star above the flag. That indicates it has a morale of 1. Militia, I can't see it well enough because there's a fucking hat in the way, but I don't see a star there. So I believe militia is going to have a morale of 0. Otherwise I have to hunt. There's something I got to look up anyway. I know if you're attacking out of supply, you're halved. I'm not sure if you're defending out of supply if you're halved. And it makes a big difference here. I thought it was only the attacker who's impacted that way. It's pretty much success all around. We defeated both Barclay and Constantine up here. Both cases we got our double doinker attack and spread out our troops, so we're not going to take heavy attrition next turn, but also still supporting each other pretty heavily. There's some risk to it, but if somebody wants to consolidate their forces into a huge force, especially as we're getting into the winter months. Oh, forgot this. We'll talk about the English in a moment because I got more to say about them. All right, we successfully have captured Olmütz as well. More Russian troops there. The Guard infantry, Kutuzov, that's not good. Although the Guard are not, like, the Russian Guard are not that helpful. Only the French Imperial Guard has a particularly effective thing. In fact, the Russian Guard can end up making Russian regulars act like Austrians or something like that in a mixed force. Just because, whatever. Because the morale system for this is fucked up. I think they use the same damn thing in Nations in Arms, too. It's a really horrible thing. You want to average it. Okay, the British militia took a big old D2. They were already, zero morale, beaten back. I don't particularly want to advance against them because I want to stay supporting against the Prussians if they move, and the Brits, they actually can't even move. That's the craziest thing. I actually thought they were more of a threat because I was thinking, oh, they can start moving around. No, but they also aren't going to die. They're just going to sit there. And I don't know. I don't think they can rally under this rule without a leader. Not positive about that. But they're out of morale. They're demoralized. They're out of supply. And they have no way of escaping. I can just leave them there and kind of ignore them. And they're not even interfering with my supply line, which is running me up so that I can face the Russians. It's kind of a tenuous thing, to be honest. Actually, I don't need it. I only need to go to there. But yeah. Anyway. We're going to hold for a while. I may end up sleeping before that. I made myself coffee, but fuck, I've had a couple of cups and it doesn't help keep me awake. Coffee doesn't do much for me. I had a friend who said, all coffee manages to do is keep you at the level of awakeness that you are. Which is why you need to smoke or something while you're drinking your coffee so that you boost, your energy. I am smoking, but the coffee just, I can go to sleep after drinking coffee without any problem. The only thing it does to me is it fucks with my gut. And my gut seems to fuck with itself nowadays. Up here now on Tuesday morning. After a decently long sleep, like 4 or 5 hours, and then my usual fucking around. English Navy. We were on the English side. I was a little confused by that. Moving into place. Didn't get any extra AABs or whatever. Reduced that by 3. Shifted fleets around a little bit. I pulled Uxbridge out of here, out of Naples, because I don't want to lose him. He's my only leader at this point. I get others eventually, but he's my only leader with a point on him. And basically, if this is dealt with, it's dealt with. Now, the question was, did I want to advance, against northern Italy. But with a leader coming down, I can't really do anything too devastating. So that's that. That'll put us on the attrition roll, which should not hurt many. The Russians are, well, there's actually a big Prussian force, so I gotta check everything. That means I gotta swing over there. Production rolls, the English got a decent one, the others did not. Are falling back here. The Grodno line, again, there's a danger if the Russians, if France takes one of those major cities, it counts as an invasion of Russia. So they kind of have some protection by slipping back. Maybe not all that much. This guy didn't recover. We managed to recover that one. The Prussians, Rochelle falling back, moving some leaders up here, and we're going to try to attack in the mountains. I don't like it, but we have a big numerical advantage, which might actually be enough. Buzz, Hohenlohe, and Brunswick push forward. Do I want to split them up? It's coming into winter. Yeah, I do. That throws us over to the November turn. Breaking, obviously. Yeah. I'm really finding, again, kind of like 1776. I liked this game better than 1776, but I really do feel like all this hex manipulation and everything, it's too much. It's too much for what it adds to the situation for me. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't mind it as much in the big World War II games. Kind of feel like the hexes make more sense there. But here, I feel like I'm not that far from an area battle game, especially something like Empires in Arms, where I have the outflanked chit, which kind of represents some of the weirder stuff that I might be doing here. But yeah, the same as Nations in Arms, it's almost impossible to actually get those kind of decisive battles. At the very least, they're decisive in the sense that, like now, with the remaining disordered or demoralized, you kind of have to fall back if you can't recover your demoralization. You don't find out if you recover it until after you move, so you do kind of give some ground at least. I like that aspect of it. I think I really don't know how I feel about the chit selection thing. The little bit I played of it, basically, if you're going to lose the battle, or if you don't have at least kind of equal odds in the battle or close to that, you run away. You don't get the decisive battle. And that's fine. But you lose the battle. And that's something like Napoleon can't possibly do, right? Because he generates victory points, victory points from that. I don't think we don't get a city point from taking Poland because we created Poland. Same thing with Dalmatia. If we chose not to create it, we would get a city point on it. But as it stands, the political advantage is high enough. At least that's what I'm gonna say. Yeah, it looks, France is hard to beat. And it should be. France should not. I feel like this game captures how overwhelming France's power is in this early part of the wars, but it's just not that much fun. And there's a lot of tedium to manipulating the units and everything. The older version might make it a little better, but I remember when I played it last, again, just, there's a certain dryness to the game and everything that just doesn't excite in the way. And a lot of it has to do with that representing it on the hex map instead of the areas, I think. The areas work just fine for this kind of game. Just take up another layer of abstraction because I just don't feel like manipulating the forces on the hex grid is all that enlightening. Daylight comes, I'm going to have to go downstairs and carve my wheel some more. It seems an impossible task, but and I got 2 of them to do. I spent several hours. We got cold weather everywhere, which is just standard winter rolls everywhere. That's fine. Austria got low production, and we're on the French Navy. To continue their somewhat pointless commerce raiding. Tried to slip out here. English fleet was driven away, but both fleets are damaged, or squadrons. Over here, the Spanish fleet took another kill, damaged another one of their ships. British got away with no damage. Spain's navy is beginning to become almost irrelevant. See, it's down to 1 fleet there. I think that's it. 1 squadron. Yeah, 1 damaged squadron is all that's left. I'm rebuilding another one, but, the Brits are just getting a numerical advantage. And with their naval points coming in, they're in pretty good shape. I guess we should roll for attrition. Oh boy, that's going to hurt. French forces are small enough they're not affected with the bonus. But there were a couple that got in here, and that ends up being 2 losses. No cav were lost, at least. And the Spaniards have an issue, because Spain has a -1, which cancels out their home country bonus, so they end up getting hit over there. Oh, well, a -1, plus it's winter. I forgot about that. Fuck. Yeah, the French are hit harder. I gotta take some more losses. Strong for Spain, not for France. I gotta do all the French miners. It's so hard to remember that aspect of it. I don't know why. Harder thing is when there's pools of forces, well, like here, that aren't on the charts. Usually the leaders contain all the big forces, but sometimes bigger forces start to form, and that causes a serious issue in terms of the attrition checks, because I don't remember to look. Anyway, I guess we're on the movement. This is always the painful part of this game. The rest of it, it's kind of mechanical and I can deal with. The navies, I have to think, but it's not that painful. The actual ground game is just, it's so much more detail than the rest of the game. And that's okay. I mean, it was primarily a ground game to begin, from the beginning. All the scenarios are really ground fighting scenarios. The rest of it is just sort of the campaign framework hanging around it. Of course, I always play the campaign game and kind of feel like the politics is, not emphasized enough and this, that. It is a war game after all. It's just I don't find it that appealing to play that ground game any more than I did with Nations in Arms. I don't know why. Somehow the hex grid just doesn't do it for me in the same way. Now there are games that I like with the hex grid. Campaigns of Marlborough. Although that's a really weird game because it's like more complicated than it the rules would seem in terms of the length of them, but there's basically a lot of unsaid stuff that you have to figure out and make up. Some of the Zucker designs, some of them, the operational stuff, I kind of enjoy. Obviously, I'm good on hexes for the tactical stuff and everything, but somehow this grand strategic in the gunpowder era, or maybe for the same matter in the ancients, you know. I'm thinking Imperium Romanum here, which just feels like there's so much effort being put into the hex grid handling, and it just doesn't feel like it actually handles things correctly. On the other hand, I kind of feel like I enjoyed what is it? The Berg series, the Ancient World stuff from that. Like Rise of the Roman Republic down there, and Carthage, the First Punic War. And, you know, I'm signed up for Thunderblah. So, you know. All right, enough delay, I guess. Something of a problem with dealing with Prussia here, which is that all my good leaders are facing the Russians. And the Russians have a force still available. Unlike historically, where the French basically swept across Prussia, I was in the wrong position when Prussia came into war, because I was flirting with the idea of going all in on Russia. Could have kind of shifted over here and, you know, been in a position to face Prussia. I've got to rethink things, but I can't afford to let Warsaw fall. If I let Warsaw fall, I can't reinstate Poland, if I recall correctly. And I think I'm stuck with the countermix issue that I brought up would happen with this version that would not happen in the old version. I have a 2-point, I guess, Dutch cav here. Wait, I'm not so sure. That may be Italian. No, that's Dutch. That I want to break up, because I need one of them. I kind of fucked up. 1, 2, 3. I need one of them here to be my supply source. I'm not going to worry about what happened, but I've got, I guess, only 2 Dutch cav. Maybe there's another one kicking around somewhere else, but I can't use this one because it's part of my force pool. It's covering what's in the force pool. So I'm going to have to use this whole 2 strength points to be my supply depot, which fucking sucks. Well, now wait a minute. I got this guy. Maybe. No, he's the unit that I need to attack whatever's here, Castle, which is in Hesse. It's also kind of weird. Westphalia, which is this, officially, needs Kassel and Brunswick as its 2 production cities. What's kind of odd is they don't get Hanover. Hanover, I don't know if it can be French. I guess I could use French militia for it. I think there are some French militia. I'm not sure about that. It's French partisans. Yeah, I don't think there are any French militia. Anyway, because there's no, what do you want to call them? No generic units for France that I can use like there are for every other country. And the Russians fucking use Cossacks for this, which is absolutely ridiculous. So they have like a really crappy morale cav army that they form inside Germany if they conquer anything in there. But anyway, because the French don't have anything that they can use as a generic unit, I can't conquer Hanover. There may be other locations that are like that. I know I have counters for Saxony. Actually, both Prussia and France have Saxon counters. That's sort of a unique case, I think. I don't think there's another case where there are counters. And also, like, if Sweden becomes pro-French, there are no counters for it. Kind of weird. Although that may be handled with the special rules for Sweden. Certainly because Russia might go to war with Sweden. So it's all fucked up, though. And that's all carries over from the original game. But anyway, Hanover itself would have been part of the Westphalia that would have been created. It was a relatively large area. I think Empires in Arms handles things better. Anyway, guess I have to use that full cav. That would be obviated if this was my supply source, but I don't think it can be because Hanover is not a minor under my control. Although it kind of is. Yeah, you know what? I think it is. Because I own the only production city in it. I don't know. There's weird shit, like Sweden owns part of it. Fuck it. We'll say I'm drawing my supply out of there. That just makes me happier. Because that's what I was kind of assuming was, oh, I got forces up there, I must be in supply. Yeah, I'm not so sure. I've moved all my French except for this tangled knot where I have to deal with the Prussians and the pipeline going into that. And I'm tired already. Press the Prussians here. My numbers are less than theirs. Sending someone down into Italy. Also not dealing with this, it doesn't really matter. Ooh, this guy, he can do something. I need that. Move him there. I don't know what he's up to, but he's part of the funnel. You know. So yeah, I just have this, which is, I think, going to turn into a siege, but maybe I assault. And then Rushel, who I don't know what's going to happen there. Marmont versus Rushel is actually a very close fight. If Rushel goes in, he'll be under siege, because Marmont's not going to attack him at 1 to 2. They have the same strength points. I think that's what I want to do, rather than fight. If I fight, oh, by the way, I think Empires in Arms, I think surrendered forces don't go back in the force pool. There is no force pool. I think any captured forces are returned as real forces when there's an exchange of prisoners. In this game, the exchange of prisoners just gives you your force pool back. I don't know. Both. You can make an argument for both. It's probably somewhere in between. Yeah, I don't think Rushel wants to fight. Hesse fell. That means I've turned them kind of upside down, which I could do with these guys too. They'll confuse me more if they're in a force pool that I'm using. Well, we end up capturing Rushel. Was that he would tie up the French positioning, because if he fought, he'd be falling back, probably demoralized, etc., and not in good shape. And there's the threat to Berlin coming from the east. If Berlin falls, Königsberg I can't do a damn thing about because I don't have any landfare. I can't build there. If Berlin falls, Prussia surrenders. Of course, the French probably don't want Prussia to surrender until they take Saxony, until they form Westphalia, all that shit. But I don't know, not having to fight the big battle, the main army is in Saxony, and I don't have my main army there, and my main army is facing the Russians, which is kind of where I want it to be. It adds a lot of intriguing things. I don't know, I'm tempted to just go with if I beat Prussia, go with Tilsit and get the Russians out for a while. That'll you know, I think that I don't know what opens Denmark up. Beating Prussia and Austria once opens Denmark up. It opens Sweden up for issues with the Russians, causes all kind of weird shit. So, I may go with the Greater Poland, because I think that gives me another... I don't see Brest-Litovsk. I don't think it gives me another production city, which kind of makes it not worthwhile. Like, the regular Grand Duchy seems good enough. Buy some more time from Russia. And then, I don't know, we go on our Spanish expedition so we can win the game. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we are at the end there of that, and we definitely need to pause before we go to the anti-French turn. The land turns are just, the actual land movement is just so taxing to me. I may have found some wheels that fit my cart. I don't know. I ordered them. They were cheap enough. It's from some army surplus type place. Who knows? Who knows? I really don't, but you know, I'm unable to find any that are designed for purpose. But these are there. Where are we? We're on the Allied side of the turn, it looks like. Okay. We were unable, I think I'm going to actually put this out here. We were unable to hunt down successfully any of the French fleets, but we did get another action against base successful. We reduced the thing under 10%. Not that that matters too much. I was going to put us on the attrition roll. And nowhere near as bad as what the French faced. Winter is nasty, both Prussia with their large stacks and Russia being, you know, unable to... Actually, did I fuck up? No. Because they bump up to a 3, but I cheated and cost them losses that they shouldn't have taken. I'm about 3 strength points back. I don't know what I was doing. They only rolled a 2. They're not going to get hit on the 3 to 5. So they took about 3 points more than I should have. If I wasn't playing with the camera, I probably would have just missed. I very likely would have just taken those losses, not thought about it, and boom, oops. Bit of a problem. I just pumped the production for the English. Everybody got normal production. I just pumped the production for the English up. And they broke 5. They're only allowed to hold 5. I don't have any troops I can build. I guess I could buy a naval point with it. Build up my ships. But I don't really want to do that. What I want to do is my ships, my transports are here. I want to send 2 production, and we'll sail out. 1, 2, 3. We'll send it to. We'll send it out to the Prussians. So the Prussians have a couple of production points. This is the problem with the ordering of play, is that. You know, I don't realize that I'm about to bump over the limit. And because the naval phase happens before it. The naval phase happening before is fine. Otherwise, it actually allows you to build ships or something, I don't know, you know, and not, you can't use them the turn you build them. And repairs take actually a couple of turns to do, and all kind of stuff like that, because the first turn you got to put your little yellow marker on it, or whatever you're using in place of what they don't give you. And the second turn you're allowed to pay, but the ship's not repaired when you need it during the naval phase. So anyway, I'm just going to work it that way, And, you know, I pretty much want to bottle up the French fleet before I move the transport, so it doesn't really affect too much. We have 2 battles possible. I'm not sure Barclay's going to actually attack Davout here. He will if his force is in good enough shape. He does have reinforcements potentially, so there's more positive aspects as long as I've got kind of an even fight. And then down with the Prussians, I didn't move anything. I'm going to launch an attack against this unnamed leader 1. I really don't like them. They're an addition. Many of the additions to the game, I feel, are problematic, to tell you the truth. Those definitely are. The staff officers shouldn't have a value. They could have put more named leaders in if they wanted to. There's something very wrong about something that can't die, and that is just a replacement leader, right? It's just anyhow. I guess that's about it. And in both cases, the French fall back, taking about equal losses. Davout gets Königsberg by doing that. Yeah, nothing I can really do about that. He would have moved in on his own. And then over here, I mean, I could have continued that fight, but I would rather make the fight be of my choosing with the leaders that I want, etc. Not, maybe I bring Ney in, maybe I don't. It all becomes kind of a crapshoot as to whether or not anything good happens. And that puts us going into the December turn. We're going to break as usual. Again, the Allied turns, or the coalition turns is more appropriate, are relatively light because they're going to attack the French where the French don't want to be attacked, and they don't have a lot of concentration, so they generally pick 1 hex here, 1 hex there, as opposed to the across-the-board type attacks the French do that are much, much more complicated. Just because the French have more troops, more leaders, everything in their favor. I mean, the Russians are pretty decent, but they're busily trying to keep their supply line and try to prevent Königsberg from falling so the Prussians can stay in the war. English shipping them production points so that the Prussians can stay in the war. I'm not sure if I was allowed to send them 2, actually, because they only actually produce 1, but they have 2 production cities. I don't know. I think you're not allowed to send them more than they actually produce. Screw it. Whatever. On empires and arms, there's basically no limit to the amount of money you can send someone, but their manpower becomes a significant limitation. And manpower here is somewhat represented by the production cities, by the force pool. It's a sort of a combination. It has a different flavor to it, but it all kind of works together. I may have cheated there. I don't care. December, cold weather across the board. Austria gets lousy production. Flip away, some heavy hits on the shipping. Gets it up to, 14%, but it still doesn't mean anything. I don't know if it switches at 15 or 20 or whatever. But right now it's just the Brits have to commit 3 ships or 2 troops or couple bucks of production to AABs. Committing production is a really lousy idea. The only question is, can you do AABs without production? My reading of the rules is yes, you can, but I could see that you could read them a different way. Got an excellent attrition roll. I'm expecting not much will die. Outstanding production for all the pro-French. Spanish focusing on navies, of course, because I don't really want to build their army up. I may have to invade them. I will have to invade them. There's one thing that I keep catching on the French turn because I go to look, hey, is there anything here? The British are blockading Bray. for no reason. The French ship got destroyed or whatever, and I just have not left the space. And I was worried that maybe I neglected an opportunity for these to rally. They can't do it without a leader. I just checked that. Pain in the ass. I knew that the rule for that was in the campaign rules, but I accidentally looked in the regular rule book first because it's open here for no apparent reason. But I had a hell of a time finding it because, again, it's down here at the very bottom of a page where it starts. I just don't notice those things easily. For the most part, the French choose not to engage. We're shifting up this way. We don't want to cross the river for our attack into Dresden. We got forces moving forward. We got troops moving down into Italy to try to get Naples back, for whatever that's worth. We are besieging Brunswick here. We want to take that before Prussia falls. We want to take Dresden before Prussia falls. This is kind of a problematic thing. The peace rules in Empires in Arms allow you to take over minors as part of the peace conditions. You still would rather just conquer them because it doesn't eat up your peace conditions that way, but at least you have some flexibility. Here, I'm deliberately avoiding hitting Berlin. I'm not saying that's completely ahistorical, but it feels a little funny the degree to which I'm doing it. You know, again, sometimes it made sense to try to capture more than you would capture otherwise, and try to force a better peace by taking more stuff. But in Empires in Arms, in Empires in Arms and EU and games like that have like sort of a peace, a menu that you can pick your goals from or whatever. Those give you the heaviest possible peace if you take everything, if you take the capitals or whatever. If you completely collapse them and force them into an absolute surrender, they're in a worse position than if they sue for peace for more limited peace. Empires in Arms has basically 2 levels of peace. EU has something like 5 different levels of peace. This game has 1, which is the main power, surrenders. And anything else it has, it gets to keep. And you really don't have any opportunities to take that. So while the same kind of principles hold in the other games, you can at least make up for failing to take the minors. So something like Saxony might switch hands anyway. But yeah, I don't even want to siege Berlin because it might fall. Up here, I don't particularly want to hit the Russians, but I'm willing to let them attack me. The French forces are a little too spread out for my taste, but it is winter time, and that kind of makes it less appealing to consolidate your forces. It's going to be winter next turn too. Probably. Could be worse. Anyway, it's break time. Wednesday here, and I can see if I kind of cut down. You can't really tell. My garbage has been collected, which I didn't think was the case. I would have gone out and grabbed it. But I came up here to kind of an ugly surprise. Not terrible, but I'm in the midst of a turd. I'm on the Allied turd. What happened was yesterday, I didn't go for a walk or anything, which often fatigues me. Instead, I sat outside and cut up my tire for my cart, or tires, both of them, a little bit more, and I made a lot of progress. Unfortunately, it's kind of fatiguing work. It doesn't seem like it. I'm just fucking sitting there whittling, but I banged up my knuckle, but, I guess just the energy in, doing something with my hands physically. I'm that kind of out of shape and unused to doing anything that even that's wiping me out now. That is weird being this old. And I mean, I'm old for my age, right? Like my dad didn't get tired like this from doing things, but I do anything and it wipes me out. Yeah. Anyway, I guess we're on the Allied turn. I got to think about boats. I got to replace my pipe because I came up here and now it's dead. A little bit of hunting went on down here. Nothing exciting. But I am gathering my transports for an invasion of Denmark. I want to do the historical here. There's no reason to in most games of in the old game of this, or in honestly most Napoleonic war games. But in this one, they put in special rules where Denmark can become pro-French after Prussia and Austria, which they historically were threatening to do, and the Brits went in and seized Copenhagen. And that's what I'm going to do. Good attrition roll. I got some water dripping in my sink. I'm going to have to go move the faucet so it doesn't do that. It's really annoying. It's like just a really loud noise right now. Funny, I ended up going down there to grab my garbage. It wasn't picked up yet. As soon as I got outside, I could tell it was level with the curb, but I had garbage with me to drop in the can. Anyway. All right, back to the attrition. I'm really not enjoying playing this for the most part. It's too much effort for what I'm getting out of it. Same as Napoleon Nations in Arms was. And we're, only just about to go into 1807. There's a lot of game left. Absolutely no losses due to attrition. Production was also low, though. Now it's time to move my pieces. I got to prepare Uxbridge for the invasion. He has to shift over. But other than that, damn, I don't know. And I'm out of British Army. That's kind of an issue. Built boats instead of sending production points this time because I moved my transports and whatever. But I also have a goal with my transports, which is part of the issue. Relatively easy movement actually this time. Russians moving up against Davout. Also staging against Poniatowski here. Because again, if I take Poland, that's it for Poland. They're not going to be restored. Because I chose to make them early. I have a fair amount of forces here. They are split up for attrition purposes if I don't win the fight or whatever. Over here, here's where this game starts getting a little bit interesting. I moved Brunswick on top of Leader A, but he's across the river. He's going to help by being able to bring reinforcements in. I moved Hohenlohe all the way across the river to start the attack. This is some of the mechanisms that make this system work better, I think, than others, because the attack is all coming from one hex and stuff like that. It's like one hex to another hex for the fight, even though other areas may be involved in the battle. It's just kind of I don't know, there's some weirdness to it, but it does generate some tactical situations where you want to do some things that maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you'd want to stack all your units so they all come into the battle at the same time. Well, I couldn't afford to leave Dresden. I could afford, you know what I'm going to do? If I'm going to stack all my units anyway, I'm going to move my big force here, 1, 2, and join Hohenlohe. At least as much of it as I can. I think it's only 10. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. I'm going to join Hohenlohe with that. That way Brunswick entering becomes less of an important factor. And we got 2 fights. I got to put my chips out. Okay, well, Davout took his as a siege. We haven't rolled yet. The Russians could have attacked at decent odds. They would rather see if they can capture Davout, to tell you the truth. They're not in a real hurry here. There isn't a hell of a lot facing them. And over here, Ney got chased away. He had a tiny force. Like I said, I'm kind of playing half fog of war, half not, which is to say, I avoid really ugly fights and stuff like that when I see them. Something along those lines. That means we're moving into the new year, and this is important. First of all, Spain comes in at some point with something, but also I got to kind of page through all the special rules to find out what all is going on, because, you know, like I said, I think Denmark, Sweden, these all have special rules that I have to pay attention to, that I have to do something about at some point in the game. And if I forget one of those, it could actually mean, you know, if I forget something like invading Spain or invading Russia in time, that could mean losing my opportunity to win the game as fully as possible with the French. But there are others, you know, just diplomatic stuff. So I gotta look around and see what I can find. First one is the possibility of wars with England and Russia. And these are harsher than I thought. I don't remember this being the case in the original. Here there's a 1 in 6 chance in each case. I don't know. Not having read these rules. Foreign wars. Yeah. Wow. Now, there is some reason why it might take till 1812 for the Brits to get into war with the U.S., and that's the commerce raiding. If the French do commerce raiding in the North America sector. All right, Brits are going to be at war with the U.S. They're going to have to lose 4 infantry, 2 fleets, 2 transports. That breaks their chance of doing Denmark. They don't have the transports anymore. I thought there was some sort of timer on invading Spain and Russia. I mean, there is in Spain in the sense that come July, this thing starts moving down this track, or once Prussia surrenders. And that might bring Spain as anti-French. That's the only implication there. Russia, I don't see anything that I could find. They have to be conquered to win the game, or else there's some other aspects. But that's it there. I've put a couple of things on the board. I put the Spanish on the turn that they come into play, and I put Bernadotte where he comes in. But things are a little complicated because things are triggered by when somebody surrenders and stuff like that. And yeah, just finding, you know, the scripting aspects without necessarily like a good... There is a timeline. There is a timeline, damn it. Here we are in January. Let's see if there's anything on there that helps me. Maybe there's something that'll remind me. So Spain at war with France may happen earlier via the alliance chart. That's not true. Spain does not go to war with France. They start playing with their track, but okay. Austrian landwehr. Okay, here's the one. January 1809. France must have invaded Spain before this date. I couldn't find it in the rolls. Maybe I saw it here. France may annex Holland. That's a rule I don't have. I'd have to go down and maybe all of these are in that little segment of 4 pages that I don't have. But this one I'm assuming is England can lend aid to Russia. That's if Tilsit happens. Yeah. Easier French invasion of Russia rule ends. I don't know about anything like that. I think that's the restriction right now. If Russia loses a major city, they've been invaded, and later it's got to be 25 strength points within Russia. It's not really easier. It's not an advantage. It's just typhus, Bernadotte. Okay, England may lead to Russia under a different option. France must have invaded Russia before this date. So I'm going to go with these. They're probably in the rules somewhere. I looked. I couldn't find them in my victory conditions, which is where, maybe they're in the two-player victory conditions, which kind of apply. I bet you. Spain was invaded prior to 1809. Russia was invaded prior to 1813. This is the if you hold Paris at the end of the game to get that victory condition. So yeah, it is actually there. I just didn't look in the two-player ones but those are in effect. Okay. I didn't think that that's where it would be. Kind of funny, like I was mentioning, I'm so out of shape or whatever, so old for my age. In terms, I felt a little winded going down 2 flights of stairs, down to the bottom of the hill, and then back up again. In a way that just doesn't seem right, Now, I mean, when I climb my hill, I get a little winded too. Not just this, but the hill as a whole, going all the way down there. When I come back up the hill, I do feel a little winded, but that's okay. I feel like that's a pretty heavy thing. But this I didn't expect, especially since I felt almost as winded as I do when I climb my hill. Like this is just I'm just going down to check my mail or whatever. I have no idea. No idea. It may just be more my mental state than anything else, or maybe I was sick recently and it does seem to have affected me. My chest still hurts. So who knows? Doesn't hurt bad, but it's tender. Back up here, I tried cutting the tire some more, and very quickly my knuckle started bleeding, and I'm like, yeah, that's not good. I really ought to put something on. I got a little Band-Aid on right now. I don't know if that's enough to protect me. It's hard because it's the hand that's holding the blade, and I don't really want to have gloves for it. I feel like, like those little knee pad things, I need a little knuckle thing like that. Oh, looks like I got friends. I mean, I don't, but down there. Weather is cold across the board again, which is same as winter. Austria got shitty production, and I try to figure out what to do with my French Navy. But, honestly, I feel like the commerce rating is overall a negative for France's chances. It opens up a new opportunity, right? You'd think it's just a positive. But there's some possibility that, like, the French Navy can build up, and this is a good way to lose it regularly. If you just keep it in port, it's going to stay fine, and it's going to grow over time. It's not having any effect, because the French Navy's beaten up enough that the English can afford to send. I mean, no matter what, the English can afford to send what the French have on the global map out there, right? Otherwise, it's not going to change the whatever disparity there is, and it's probably going to be in England's favor. Anyway, naval phase had some effect, honestly. We got this up to 15%. I just looked that up. That means that the English can't get a good die roll for production anymore. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And unfortunately for us, though, the ship, I found a Spanish ship sitting in Cadiz, and I'm like, hey, nobody's blockading it. Fuck, I'm going out. Well, it got sunk by Nelson. Nelson, if I'd used his double bonus, would be dead. And then we had an attempt to escape here, which ended up with both fleets damaged. That's going to put me on the attrition roll. Let's see how bad it looks. Probably going to be some losses. So easy to fuck up with force pools. I'm just puttering along. I'm like, oh yeah, they lost one, and just flipping counters over. And then I have to make a guess how many I actually lost to go in the force pool. I'm pretty sure I got it right. Production. If I'm on camera, I might as well. Okay, Spain gets a couple. I think we have two battles here. Sewell is going to try to attack Benningsen here. Poniatowski tried to get into his same hex. He didn't make it. Messina covering for him in Warsaw. There might be some danger there. And I'm going to try the double doinker attack over here with Napoleon. Let's see if that works. Plus we got the siege going on. Yeah, barely. It's Napoleon. He, has a 1 in 6 chance of failure. That's it. Right. This battle was a quick one. Hohenlohe took a d3 right off the bat. Decided to retreat. Should have another hit against him. Which I did not do. Let's see, he had a cav disadvantage. This one, though, has opened up and everybody's involved in it now, including Davout, who came out of the city. So it's going to be painful to add up, whatever. I did notice something that I erred with. It's not too bad, because it's still January. But I forgot to increase my force pools at the beginning of the year. Yeah, so busy looking up all the little Chrome rules, I forgot the sort of standard thing that you have to do every year. Funny, I ran down to get the trash up. Same trip that I did before, not from up here, but wasn't bothered at all by it. It's like, what's going on, man? No idea what got in my way with it last time. Anyway, I don't want to do this battle. Everybody involved. The French were at a numerical disadvantage, 3-2 against them. It's kind of funny. This chart handles the mirror images, but they really are mirror images. It is the same chart, so you could cut it, 1 to 1, 3 to 2, 2 to 1, and use it just the same way, which is what I'm doing. But I did notice those, and I'm like, what's up with those? Yeah, you figure out the odds for each side, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. And we took a D1. That was getting us in too bad a shape. The Russians have more cav. They had a lot of Cossacks there. Unfortunately, they had some regular cav too, so they had to take their hit on regular cav. And now it's time for me to clean this mess up, and then it'll be the coalition turn. But no way in hell I'm going to do that without breaking. The changes in the counter mix, what's on here doesn't work anymore. So for example, for the French, I was supposed to add Bessier Victor a leader 0. I'm out of leader 0s because some of the old leader 0s are now leader 1s. Actually, even though they had the opportunity to rework the counter mix completely, having a hard time finding Neapolitan units, right? I don't know if they were always short. Maybe I'm just having a hard time finding the excess units in my counter track. But Dalmatia, which has far too many units, they're only allowed 2 infantry. They have like way more than they need. I keep working my way through. La, la, la. Here it is Thursday morning. It's probably around 7. I got up around 6, which, whatever. What happened was I went to bed before 6, like it wasn't dark yet. So I slept more than 12 hours, something like 14 or something. I don't know. I might have gotten up briefly in between. I'm sure I did to pee or something, but I think I went right back to bed and basically slept through a huge amount. The day before, I took a lot of sleep too. Not quite that much. Scattered a little bit more. Yesterday, I did try to cut my tire more and ended up putting a Band-Aid on instead of whatever the hell I had on it before. Mainly so I don't have to see it, But it also, if I bump into something, it doesn't go ow. But that's about it. But more bad news, the wheels that I ordered from a surplus place, like everywhere else, they're actually out of anything that's vaguely like what I need. I can find traces of these wheels all over the place. I found one wheel for sale on eBay that looked like it would fit. But it's like, I don't want to buy a single wheel. I need a pair. It's crazy. Anyway, I just don't know. I don't even know if they sell these carts anymore. I see carts like it, but not as heavy duty. It's as if, I don't know, maybe shopping delivery and stuff like that has just taken away. Nobody builds these anymore. I can't imagine it though. Maybe all the people who used these carts are dead now or too old to move them. I don't know. Anyway, I'm back up here again in the midst of a turn, which is not where I want to be. I expected to be playing more. It's funny, I was more active for a little while last week, maybe even the beginning of this week, and skipping dancing and whatever. I was more active in the game. I was more active in life after that. And then now it's like I've withdrawn from both. And I don't know what to do. But anyway, let's see if we can pull something out of this. That puts us on the Allied naval. It's hard to even pay attention with how little I'm playing. I also have to worry about this. I think this is like a 1 in, I don't know. I know it's a one-time war, which feels a little wrong to me. I mean, yes, it was historically. I don't know where the fuck it is. This is probably the wrong book. What the hell? Foreign Wars. Upgrade to a 12. It ends. The Russian player's able... So the Russians are able to change theirs. Now, this happens during the alliance phase. I think the alliance phase happens before naval, but I can't be sure. And we don't get out of it. This is actually a pretty hefty tax on the Brits. And in the old game, it had the same rules, but without the commerce rating, so there was basically no chance that you would go until 1812 before the war started. It's what, 1807 now? And I skipped a roll for 1806. I mean, it's a 1 in 6 chance. It's probably going to happen. It might take you as long as 1812, but it's unlikely. But the modifier, what is the modifier? I think it makes it impossible because I thought it was a 2-die roll, but it's only a 1-die roll. I don't know where it is. There we go. Should a war be indicated? Oh, okay, yeah. It gives you a 50-50 chance to avoid the war roll, which would extend it out to the 1812 era. But it's much more valuable to get that war underway, and especially get those 2 ships off the British line. Now, is that enough? Not now. I'm too battered at this point. But it does make it a little easier to do the naval engagement. Now, I was at 15%, so got to remind myself what that means. That means production for the Brits is going to be worse. But only if it's still there, which it won't be at the end of this. Go look it up in the rules and try to figure it out. I'm just going to charge them for it anyway. I think if it hits that 15%, they should at least pay 1 turn of penalty for it, just like they had to send ships out to do stuff. We did get an action against bases here in the Cape, which gives us a plus a 2-point penalty against the French there. We didn't manage to catch their ships. And yeah, I guess we'll roll the attrition die roll. It's regular winter. Oh, that's gonna hurt. About the counter mix for this game, and I guess it makes sense to have some really big pieces. You know, certainly the 10 strength point pieces make sense. But there are like 15 and 20 strength point pieces. And yes, if you're absolutely like anal about putting things, you know, in the smallest number of counters possible in the force pool, and I kind of am, it makes sense. But the truth of the matter is you don't really need them. You're probably not going to have forces of 20 or more strength points in a single hex. And when you do, it's not that big a deal to have a couple of counters to represent that, right? As a, you know, to have an extra counter for that. So I really feel like those markers are, and this was in the original too, there are just too many of them. I've got, you know, I pretty much work with 10s and nothing higher than that, even in the force pool. I guess if I did have a really huge stack, because there's less room than there is in the force pool, I would actually want to compact it a little smaller, especially if I was not using the leader displays. Anyway, let's take a look at what our production is. Brits automatically get a crap roll, so I don't know why I'm rolling for them. But everybody else gets a good roll. Now, the Brits don't have any transports because they're busy with the US, so I can't ship shit to anyone else. The leader choice in this game to be odd. We just got, for the English, Moore, for the Prussians, Blücher, so we're getting some good, you know, allied leaders on the board finally. I mean, there are nations that just don't have many or any. But one that always struck me as weird was Uxbridge. I don't know that Uxbridge ever had an independent command. These are supposed to be, you know, relatively high-ranking people. If somebody like MacDonald, who did have independent commands, is not on the board ever, and we got some that are a little odd there as well on the French side, like Bessier very seldom was, you know, individually in command. He was a supporting general, and there's no rules for supporting generals or anything like that. Anyway, you've got Uxbridge, who I don't think ever had an independent command. The reason I don't think so is he was in charge of the cavalry. And, you know, he was effective at it, whatever, but I don't feel like he deserves the kind of rank that they give him in this. But I guess they felt like England needed a 1-point leader early in the game. And at that point, we didn't have 1-point unnamed leaders, which just feel like a mistake across so many ways. There are others who had very little participation in the wars. And then people who kind of disappeared. And you could say, well, they were casualties or whatever, but they really weren't. I think Mack was not a casualty. He just got sidelined and was basically unused. Now, Empires in Arms has a mechanism for that, which is that you can ban a leader, but you would never ban Mack. He's not that good as part of the peace conditions. You would ban Charles. But you have Mack who was like that. You had, obviously, Hohenlohe and Brunswick, who I think were both dead very shortly after. I think they died in the 1806 campaigns, but I'm not positive of that. Did they both die? I don't remember. One of them did. They were very old, too. So this is kind of one of those places where the nations in arms expire-by dates made sense, but those didn't happen in the midst of campaigns. So somebody like a Hohenlohe or a Brunswick would stay alive. There should also be, if you really want to be effective about this, for someone like a Mack, because he lost such a major battle and didn't have any political support really. He was Australian, I think. Really weird. Essentially, they just get cashiered, and it's a lot of complexity to it, but it feels like if you're going to have named leaders on the map and all that, it's really odd to have ones who outlist their date. Again, if Mack loses a major battle, I feel like he should just be gone. Not so much with like the archdukes and other Habsburg princes. But anyway, I don't know where I am. I'm about to move the Allied forces, and they're relatively easy to move. Oh, but I forgot to put this little marker because I wasn't able to rebuild this. I was able to get another ship on the board somewhere over here. Let's see if I remember that. Since the war seems to revolve around when Saxony falls more than anything else, I'm not willing to go for Berlin then. Of course, Königsberg going to fall, and I won't be able to take Prussia as easily. So maybe I want the out and just leave Saxony there, but then I can't. Then I can't control all the German states, which is one of my goals. Once I take this, I get to form Westphalia. The Prussians have fallen back to defend Dresden. It is their most important place as opposed to Berlin. They would rather surrender and hold on to Saxony than the other side of things. Did I give them production? Probably not. I forgot to give them production for Saxony. Let me put a replacement in there. But anyway, I'm not actually trying to be offensive there. I just wanted to make sure that I got my demoralization out. The Russians are going to launch an attack over here. I got to deal with those Saxons, though. Barclay pushes Soule back. Once again, not one of those decisive battles. But Soule is I mean, the battle was decisive. But it's not a major battle. And let me look. What do I got? These are all demoralized French. I think the only thing I have to roll for is the Königsberg siege. Why is that only on one? I don't know. But I think it might be right. So I'll leave it there. I have to be absolutely certain that something's not. And that puts me going into February. And I look for Austrian dice to remind me that Austria gets a turn. And that's it. I don't know. It's a lot of jockeying for position. The French just don't have a big enough army to hold the Russians off and destroy the Prussians at the same time. They could face the two of them together, but they're in a lot of trouble. And creating Poland was probably a big mistake, because that's giving us a requirement to be somewhat defensive along that border. If the Russians start gaining here, I've got to figure out something to do to save the Poles. A certain kind of, I don't know, not really panic, but need to get playing, because I realize how little I've gone through in this week, especially given that I took Friday off, and it's Thursday already, you know. Weather is wet in the south, cold everywhere else, so it's normal winter for the most part, and Austrian production is nothing exciting. We have just captured another French fleet or squadron trying to get out of here. I think I'm just going to sink it, because I'm out of force pool. Look elsewhere. I haven't done the global rating yet, although I moved the global ships. But for some reason, I do the global stuff before I move the global stuff before I do the breakouts, which I think is, I shouldn't do it in that order. It's nothing against the rules. It's just I can see more of what's happening if I do the breakouts first. And the French took a mutual damage result up here. No big deal. Both sides will get to repair before the French come out again. I mean, not next. They could come out with both damaged. It's a good way to lose a French fleet. In terms of the global shipping, the French managed to get the Brits up to 17 this time. So we're going to again be hitting their production the way I'm playing it. And that puts me on their attrition roll. That's not good. Into something of a problem, and I don't know how this happened. Leader D here has a humongous force. I don't know how it happened. It took me a long time to find him. He's over here. There's no way such a large force should be there. That's stuff I'm funneling up. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I've, like, put a 5 in when I expected it to be a 2 or a 1 or something. I got no idea. The amount of dealing with the force pool in this game, just so much heavier than I want it to be. Between the bounce up for attrition, bounce back for production, just making change all over the place. I just feel like I'm having to do a lot more. Some of it is just the number of different force pools there are. I don't remember it being this big a problem, but, back in the day, I was maybe more used to there being problems. I'll leave it where it is and deal with it as best as I can. Somebody else will pick up those troops. But I probably cheated at some level or another. At least a lot of them are going to die due to attrition. I think some of it has to do with the leader display and the number of different leaders that are on it and everything as well. Like, I'm comparing it to things like the Clash of Monarchs, Clash of Sovereigns. I played Clash of Sovereigns recently. I just don't remember. I remember having issues with dealing with keeping the force pool alive. One nice thing about that game is it told me how big the force pool was at any given time. So, and also there weren't, because it was more of an area management game, point to point, whatever, there weren't a hell of a lot of stacks on the board. So I could do a quick assessment of how many infantry, how many cav were on the board. There weren't all these miners, all kind of stuff like that. Again, I may have just not cared that much. I mean, that's essentially the solution that I come down to is, well, fuck, something may have happened wrong, but I can't go around trying to fix the force pool, right? Maybe if I did a whole translation over to the old map, I would do a count at the same time. But again, I don't know. It would probably save me time still in the long run to do that translation. but I'm so unhappy with the rivers on the old map. That is the one thing that I feel like this version really got right. Avalon Hill had a tendency to put rivers down the middle of the hexes, and they just don't represent rivers as well as putting them on the hex sides. At least my opinion there. I guess I do production. For what it's worth. Nothing good. And again, production is such a fatiguing thing in this that I want to stop right now, right? I want to stop now and walk away before, because I know that the ground phase is even heavier, right, for the French. All their little miners, all of them, you know, making the decision which one to produce where, whatever. It's just, it just ends up so painful. But, yeah, I can't stop there, but there's very little joy coming from playing this at this point. And, you know, once upon a time, I remember this game really hooking me. But that was before Empires in Arms. After Empires in Arms, I turned my head away from this one. And then I kept looking back and thinking maybe the tactical aspects were enough to justify this. Don't feel they are. It's better than Nations in Arms, by far. Like, that is a game with no point, as far as I'm concerned. This is one where I can see the tactical opportunities being more interesting. The problem is the chit pull, the chit selection thing in this, while it does offer, you know, more of a, I don't know, more of a reasonable kind of, I don't know, it's hard to say, because it's like, if you don't play with it, the battles are almost all inconclusive, like, or minor, you know? Everything feels like it's just a little skirmish. Sure, you might lose 15,000 men, but it doesn't feel like you're getting those huge Napoleonic battles as often as you should. But with it, you're getting them maybe not too often, but somebody who wants to pull out of a situation has to pay a bigger price for it, because they, you know, you face a weak force and you know they're going to pick the withdrawal chit, so you can pick your chit and get a bigger bonus off of it, not have to risk your cav or anything like that on it. So I don't know. I don't really feel like you get more pitched battles. I think instead you pay a higher price for your withdrawal that you get pretty easily here. There might be a couple of cases where you're like, yeah, I really don't want to play, but I really don't want to pay the withdrawal cost on this one. But there's nothing to really encourage, even though you would think with 2 dice, especially with both sides rolling 2 dice, that you've got a big span of randomness in there that might make it worthwhile to fight battles that you're a little behind in. It really isn't. It really isn't. Fatigue level. Going into the big land movement without the break in between, after having done the production and all, that's kind of what drives me away from the game. Like, I don't come up as often because I'm like, it was horrible last time. Then I come up and it's easy with the anti-French, and I'm like, that'll be easy. But then the French turn is just, you know, so hefty that it's like, yeah, I don't want to play, and I stay away for the day. The game is about schlepping the leaders back and forth. I don't know whether or not I've made a mistake in certain cases, or if it's just leaders who, you know, are on their way back to gather troops. So in this case, I find Eugene without any troops with him. Also leader H, who I think I just started moving, or just moved this turn, without any troops. And I tried to move Eugene on to take H's troops. But one of H, I think, came from here, so that's fine. Eugene, though, I think he came from back here and should not have any troops with him, and that's fine. But it's like, I've just got so many fucking leaders wandering around with little amounts of troops or no troops, just trying to shift shit around. And it's like, I don't know, maybe that's where that mistake came up, where I had way too many troops under one of the leaders. Maybe I put troops that belonged with Eugene under that leader instead, just with this mess of numbers of leaders, etc., on the board. Again, I don't remember the game being this ugly, but I also remember it being kind of tiresome and me quitting partially through quite often. Look, part of that was the grand campaign. I would look at and say, yeah, it's not really reflecting Napoleonic situation. This one, I feel like with its scripting, is trying to do that better. Anyway, I haven't moved everything yet. I'm still trying to deal with this mess here of all these different leaders. And I've got the Italians. I want to bring this down to reinforce this because he doesn't have enough to take Naples anymore. But right now, whoever's here, Soule, was unable to recover, was unable to get close to Messina. I am going to try to defeat, I guess, Blucher there. Blucher, using the double doinker strategy. But I've got a whole mess here I've got to cope with. And it's all these lookups back and forth from the table to there. And then if I need to make change, I have to run over here to do that. It's making me long for the Zucker with the tracks for the strength points instead of this. I think that something with tracks might work a lot better, but I don't know. That had its own issues. The operational games there that kind of annoyed me as well. Again, I don't know what I'm hoping for, but maybe I've just gotten too old for this game. Thing that certainly doesn't help. I have to pick up each counter to read it. And again, I don't remember the old one being as problematic that way. But also, my eyes were better back then. But there's less real estate on the counters being given to the words. They're tinier. Because there's got to be room for that extra letter for nationality for every single counter. Not the leaders. There has to be this stupid fucking picture of the leader, which it's not like they're distinguishable. I mean, except in a couple of cases, but for the most part, it's the same fucking image on everything. Just put the goddamn flag on. That was easy. That didn't take up a lot of room and was really equally identifiable. For the actual troops, they're taking up space, with the national letter, with the little flag, all that. It's not designed for my old eyes anymore. The old one worked okay. I can see now, I can still see, it still works for my old eyes a little better, but, yeah. And I end up with a couple of battles. I'm going to go after Brunswick here in Saxony. I'm going after a double doinker move here with Napoleon going to jump over. Let's see if he manages that. And obviously against the Russians, I'm just falling back and not very effectively. I'm probably going to lose Poland. Napoleon does not manage to come in. This could be horrible for the French. Well, Leader B, he's not that bad, had an even at 1-2 essentially. He took a D1 off of it, but now Napoleon has actually come in. Now that was somewhat risky. If Napoleon got another 1, that would mean that his forces wouldn't be involved. I've got these guys tied down. I'm besieging them right now, but I could actually pull out. I can try for that cav too, although that's probably not going to come in. It does. So Leader B gets this as well, and we hunt for where Leader B is. So this is an annoying thing. They have like Marat in between some of the lettered leaders. The leaders are not placed in any rational mechanism. Like, they're not alphabetical, they're sort of semi-alphabetical, like it's alphabetical for a while, and then first it's done by numbers. Okay, that's fine. Then it's kind of alphabetical, but like Morant should not be here. Maybe he should be after Moreau. But why is Ney over here then? You know, Marmont, Ney, Poniatowski, then up to Victor, then down to Bernadette. It's just like all over the place. You know, there's some semblance of, and I don't remember if the originals were this problematic as well, but there's additional leaders in here because there's like stuff for these stupid little revolutionary scenarios, which don't really add a lot. They gave me an opportunity to, you know, play out the system before the grand campaign. That's about it. If you like scenarios, okay. You know, there's more in this one. Great. I don't really, I don't know. I don't think they add enough for me. Like, what I want is something, and I've wanted this for a while, and nothing has it except apparently a print and play thing called Empires in Harm. That, like, somebody keeps pushing on me, and I'm like, I'm not doing print and play, man. But it's based in Empire in Arms. But there's nothing that really handles the dynamics of the revolutionary period and the main line of the imperial, like, Napoleonic Wars. I want something that handles all of that. The closest that comes to that kind of thing is actually Grand Sequel, or maybe similarly, where is it? Imperial Struggle, which is, you know, covering the century before. I don't know if either one of them covers the revolutionary period, but it feels like it's that same struggle, right? That 100 years of Anglo-Frankish struggle through the 18th century feels like it's spilling over into the Napoleonic period. It's the same battle, really. And you could kind of argue it continues on to some extent, but not militarily, later on. Like, that same political dynamic lasts really as an issue until soon before World War I. Even though, you know, you've got the British and French working together in the Crimean War and stuff, there's still sort of a general, like, struggle between these two great powers. It's just Germany manages to unite them with here's a more dangerous thing. Anyway, where am I? I'm ready to start fighting now with Napoleon in the battle. Blücher obviously hasn't withdrawn yet, and, well, the French are going to make the attack again. The odds turning against him, Blücher falls back. Essentially, everybody, he didn't even have to, but, like, he wasn't demoralized or anything, but the odds are not in his favor anymore. He's facing 3-2 at, like, a +3. It's just with Cav involved. Oops, I forgot to take my loss for the French. That's a guard cav, or a couple guard cav. What's up? So yeah, not fortuitous for us. Let's do our sieges. Let's do the Brunswick one first. Does not fall, and then a 1-6 on Dresden. Also does not fall. Up here, and you know, it's the easy anti-French turn. I did the naval options or whatever activities. They didn't result in anything useful, but check the attrition. That's not going to be good either. It's winter everywhere except in the south where it's yucky mud. In the course of the attrition, we came up against the countermix limits. I don't have enough Cossacks in this game. Again, you know, there's less counters because of the double printing and whatever. Although, I don't know, I have a lot of 2s on the board. I just don't have enough Cossacks. I've had to proportion them improperly and whatnot. I remember this may have been an issue with the original, though. I think there maybe weren't enough Cossacks there either. Anyway, I'm using that, which, look, it has a little letter on it. That, you know, under the new ones, everything has a little fucking letter on it, but that was the indication. That's a Cossack. It has a C on it. Guards would have a G on them, you know. You might get the Guards and the Cossacks confused because, at least with my eyes, at this point, it's kind of hard to tell the G from a C, but still. There's just so much information on these new counters that none of it is really readable. And it's all present. You know, it could all be derived from the others. So, for example, the Cossacks' morale state, that's a little star. I can barely see it. Even with the camera, it's hard. Anyway, let's, I guess, do production next. Now, the Brits don't get to roll. They're shit no matter what. Even though I'm down to 14 now, that's the way I'm doing it. But the Russians are going to get good production. So I notice my Prussians have gotten themselves cut off from supply. They might have been before as well. I'm not so sure. But clearly I can't launch the attack that I want to. Got to be careful with the Russians too. I think they've gotten themselves out of supply here too. That I can restore pretty easily. But again, you know, it's really easy to fuck up your supply lines in this because, I don't know, you know, the depots, I find it even harder to track supply in this than in Nations in Arms, even though they're very similar systems for that. The only thing with that game is it just doesn't bring the depth of the reinforcements and whatnot into play properly. It ends up being you just want a big stack, and then it ends up being you fight, you know, something very similar to area combat. But at least this represents a little bit more than that. Yeah, there's weird shit about cutting supply lines in that. Like, I think maybe the movement is higher or something. You were able, certainly, to fuck with the enemy. Well, one thing is the defense doesn't need supply in this. So cutting supply lines isn't an offensive option. It's something to prevent the offense from moving forward. But it's like you don't end up running out to cut supply to have the enemy the way you do in that one. Because the defender's always in supply. Anyway, I got to work pretty hard to figure out what I want to do. I was going to just come in and try to clear Dresden, but that's not going to work. The Russians are very happy. They just have to get their supply in order again. Confusing things is, I just moved out of Leipzig, and I'm like, oh, I was in supply. No, I'm not. That's a Saxon major city. I only can take supply off Prussian major cities and the Saxon capital, neither of which is accessible to me. So Leipzig's unimportant at this point. So far, our attacks, because the French don't seem to want to take Berlin, we've moved Hohenlohe over to try to clear Brunswick, the siege there. I was hoping Blucher could get up there, then I would maybe not bring as many forces with me. And the Russians are moving up against this, but also positioning themselves to threaten Warsaw. I'm not attacking Warsaw this turn. I'm hitting whoever the hell this is, Soule, who's badly demoralized, which, you know, easy target, man. Problem with my insistence on using different colored dice for each country, I can lose them. I lost track of where one of the Prussian dice was. Didn't know. Anyway, the attack here was successful. Soule fell away. He's down to like 1 strength point now. Things are looking really bad on that Polish front. rare instance of a mini round battle. Mainly because they were equally matched. Nobody got lucky, so they kept losing 1 strength point each. And the French actually stuck around here at Brunswick, even at the 3-2 odds. But when it got to 2-1, they're like, yeah, we're out of here. The garrison came out to help. We can't, well, maybe we can. Okay, so what I was going to say is we can't end the war just by taking Berlin because of Königsberg, but Königsberg hasn't fallen to the Russians yet. Let's see if it does this turn. It does not. So we have a chance to get out of this war that's not going all that well, which is something to seriously consider, because we could devote all of our strength then to the Russians. What's worse is Austria is coming close. They'll be able to re-enter the war, but Austria's army isn't prepared. I mean, their force pool is filled with troops. They have almost nothing on the field, so they're not really terribly valuable to throw into the battle. If they lose too many times, they may not be able to win the game. I don't remember. I know they can lose twice and still win, but I don't know about 3 times. And that's kind of a, okay, let's look at this shit. I really wish this was divided up by nation so I could look. Decisive, 2 or fewer times to get the decisive victory. So there's a strong reason for Austria to stay out of this war. However, France could just slam into them again if they take Prussia out. So I don't know. You know, they have a hard decision here. England can't supply. What the hell are those? Those are like Neapolitan troops that are just stuck in Austria and unable to do a damn thing about it. And the Austrians can't command them. They can't supply them. They're just stuck there. Feels weird in a lot of ways. But that's going to put us into what probably is not good spring weather. Normally in the game this would be, March would be just fine weather for campaigning, etc. It's probably going to be terrible weather, which is actually more applicable. The mud and whatnot, especially in Russia, but elsewhere as well, is very likely to happen. This is where poor weather comes in. Yeah. Situation is definitely developing in a way. France might be able to save Poland by conquering Prussia this turn. And if we get lucky, we get Saxony. We're not going to get Westphalia, though. So we're facing a worse situation than historically. Of course, the game always gives you a better situation than historical with Portugal. England can't get it back once that's anti-French. And they pretty much can't get it back while Spain's in there. So Portugal has always been very ahistorical. I don't think there's anything in the new rules that prevents this. All right, another turn march. Weather is poor everywhere except for in the south where it's wet again. I hope I was keeping track of the weird movement. And Austria gets double production. Ooh, it's actually a big deal for them. Commerce rating is getting more and more effective. We got them over 20%. Which means they have to spend the 3 production points per turn and send the 3 naval units. This is a painful blow for the English. I'm assuming they can use their naval point because otherwise they're not going to have 3 production points per turn. Let's get a nasty, nasty attrition roll. This is going to hurt them a lot. And they're probably going to lose Poland anyway, even... No, I got a shot. I take Berlin out. Yeah, I still might lose Poland because Russia's still at war with me. But wait a minute. What happens with Tilsit? Can we force Tilsit here? I can force Tilsit at this point. So yeah, I can save Poland. I start to position my forces to take Prussia out. I've got a couple of problems. One is I failed to get anybody. I had a hard time getting to Berlin because of the crappy weather, but I failed to get anybody into Brunswick, which means I'm not going to be able to create Westphalia. Okay. I mean, it would be a 1 in 6 chance. Saxony is going to be a 1/3 chance. Unless I assault it, which I might be able to manage. I can check the troops around there, see if I can get an assault on them. But that breaks the siege if I do that. So it's like kind of an iffy thing to do. But then the other thing I have in mind is I don't remember when I can declare war on Austria. And I know my rules for empires and arms pretty well there. There's fixed, periods of you cannot go to war, much like in EU. And that would be in place until the 12 months is up. And you can't declare war on somebody if you've got troops in their country. I'm not sure that's the case here. I might be able to drag Austria back into a war and get another 12 months by just beating up on this shit. I don't recall that, and it didn't stick well in my head. So I've got to kind of analyze the rules and figure out, whether or not I can just slam into Austria right now, basically next turn, knock them out for another year, and then move to Spain, or if I'm, and whether or not I'm not even sure I'm allowed to. Like, the way the rules are written is kind of funky. It's like, it's like each active player must announce his state as pro-French or adopting neutrality. Somewhere or another, though, I'm allowed to drag someone into war. I know that. And it may involve tweaking them out of neutrality into the anti-French, as like, I know I can knock people out of the pro-French, and then it says you can declare war after you do that. I assume I can declare war anyway. So yeah, I really don't know. Of course, this is setting things up so Austria and Prussia both become available for war at about the same time, but, if I can weaken them enough. Austria, their armies was gone, so they have a lot of buildup to do. Prussia's army is not gone. They kind of surrendered Berlin to me for no good reason, except that, I'd like out of this war. So, alliance rules for 3 or more players. Players get to declare which side they're on. The French can choose one eligible state which is not controlled by an individual player and attempt to change. Okay, that's the die roll thing. A majority can force a pro-French state to adopt neutrality. Pro-French can then initiate combat during the next pro-French turn. Here you'd be changing your own national quality. There's nothing in here that allows you to declare war. But there's declarations of war over here. During an active player's alliance phase, the player may choose any major state not controlled by an individual player and declare war on that state. Well, what the hell? I should be able to declare war on somebody who's in the game, right? I don't get what the fuck they're trying to do with this. So I'm going to look at the old rules, see if they make more sense to me. These are even less effective. I don't know if anyone is allowed to attack, is allowed to declare war on a non-aligned country. By the way the rules are written. The old rules don't even have that declarations of war being able to force a non-aligned country into a war. It feels ridiculous that I can pick on, in the two-player game, I can pick off Austria or Prussia as I wish, but I can't do it in the multiplayer. I don't know. But there doesn't seem to be any restriction on attacking somebody I've got troops in their country, which I'm going to look up under the surrender rules, which I only have in the old rule book, see if there's something there. I feel like the original game was lacking some rules here, and that they tried to put something in place for this one, but I just don't buy it. I feel like France should be allowed to go to war with whoever they like, I think. But again, maybe that's part of the scripting, is that they decided to withdraw that, but only for player-controlled countries. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't achieve the scripting thing. That achieves okay, so you can't pick on somebody who's a player and keep knocking them out of the war, and that doesn't seem reasonable. Same strategy should work no matter what the number of players. Now, here I've got the state becomes immediately neutral and may not join a war, either pro or anti-French, for at least 1 year, nor may either faction roll for it. I am assuming that whatever I do, I keep that 1 year prohibition there. And I don't think that anything changes the conquered status, so I'm allowed to occupy Austria to whatever degree I want. The only real question is, am I allowed to declare war on Austria? That feels like it's a rule that was added in the new version to make up for things, but only for non-player countries. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't buy that. Do I buy that France should be able to keep slamming Austria? I don't know. That's always been one of the problems of the game, is that you could do that. Now, there was something I wanted to look up. Oh yeah, the special rules on Austria. How are these worded? Austria is not eligible until conquered twice. It will declare war. Again, are these forced scripting things that I can't, and this is set up so I can't even attack them? I don't know. I was unable to find basically the answer that I wanted, but maybe I found an answer that I really didn't want, which is that the game is so scripted that I can't even attack Austria, ever, and that it will not attack me until it builds up its entire force pool. I guess that means I prepare myself for the invasion of Spain, because I don't have anything better to do. Change my production. Instead, I'm gonna instead of building troops here, I'm not gonna be able to use them for anything. Could have built them closer to Spain, but I gotta bring my army to Spain. I'm gonna bring them in as reinforcements into Naples. Puts me in another countermix issue. I think there may be only one counter for guard cavalry. I have 2 guard cavalry in the game. There's no way I can take casualties or anything on them in this case. I think I've got to switch countermix. I think the countermix... Now, maybe I've got it... I've searched pretty hard, but maybe I've got it squirreled away somewhere in here that I'm not seeing. But I really think there's only one guard cavalry unit for the French, and they have 2 strength points of guard cav. If they take any casualties on it, they got to take both at the same time or something to meet the countermix restrictions. I don't know. This kind of countermix restriction didn't exist in the old game, and certainly you could split. You probably had 3 different counters, a 2-point and 2 1s, which feels excessive, but it's what you need to handle this game. Instead, they give you 1 counter that's double-sided, but you can't possibly play the game with that. It's just fucking obnoxious. So, I guess the first, I'm not sure if Prussia surrenders immediately. It's not well defined. But I'm saying no to give me the chance to take Saxony. I've decided to have it as a battle. Now the question is, does Hohenlohe want to, or does Brunswick want to make it a field battle? I don't know. He might want to. That might give him better odds at this point. When I looked at the odds, I'm not thrilled with them. So I'm going to just roll on the siege table. It was a 1, so it's a 2. On a 1 or a 2, I take it. Otherwise, I don't get Saxony. I get Saxony, bonus. And Prussia surrenders, and that triggers Tilsit, which I do want happening. What am I using? I'm using city points for these because it's not, I mean, there's control markers and such not, but whatever. These markers, which aren't defined anywhere, war, no war, active, final peace. Okay, whatever. There's a huge countermix of Saxon pieces, at least for the French. I think for the Prussians as well. Maybe not as big for the Prussians. Maybe I'm mistaken. Yeah, there's a really huge French force, and to me it looks like they only have 3 strength points, 2 infantry and a cav. It looks like they probably fucked up, and you know, some of those were meant to be other counters or something. I don't know. So where am I? So Prussia has surrendered. I've got to make some markings for Tilsit as to when Russia is available and when Russia can start getting more points. Now, the Tilsit rule, I'm going with Grand Duchy because I see no advantage to Kingdom of Poland. It doesn't give them more production cities, doesn't give them more armies. I looked this up. It's not impressive. They suggest doing this on the production track. I say no. 12 months from now, I put a marker for Russia. I put a little control marker in. But this is going to generate some other shit. I think this is Russia. It's fucking hard to read. And we need a Prussia as well, because they have a 12-month peace too. Although, the way the rules are structured, I don't think Prussia's allowed to declare war in 12 months. Like, because at the beginning of the 3rd turn after the first conquest of Austria, no. Upon reconstruction of its force pool after being conquered for the first time, Prussia will be subject to alliance rules. Well, alliance rules don't matter in this. No, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Again, it feels like the game's designed for the 2-player game. In some ways, the original felt the same way, that it was never actually meant otherwise. Now, these are captured, but nobody cares, and I gotta rearrange stuff here because I tried to make it a battle, but I didn't want to make it a field battle. Well, I didn't want to make it an assault on the city. The odds were too ugly for the French to do that. The neutrality thing means prisoners are going to be returned. I don't care. I'm not going to look it up. It's just too fucking obnoxious. Yes, I could have, who is it? Kutuzov. I could have kept Kutuzov captive and not done a Treaty of Tilsit at all and just, ignored that opportunity and kept my war going against Russia. I don't want to do that. I was in a too dangerous a position vis-a-vis Poland to go ahead with that. I've got a lot of time to invade Russia right now. I have a fair amount of time to invade Spain. I guess that's what I'm going to do, because I don't think I'm allowed to attack Russia. Well, I don't think I'm allowed to attack Austria until then. I'm not at all convinced Austria is allowed to ever attack me until they build their entire force pool. All kind of weird shit going on here, where it's like, it's just not clear to me what the new scripting is intended to be under the multiplayer rules. Is it intended to be as written, which doesn't feel like you're actually playing multiple players anymore? I don't know. The old game felt like a multiplayer game, but again, it's not clear that you could declare war on anyone ever. I just assumed you could, but because I'm used to that kind of thing. And there are statements like you can force, you can force somebody out of the pro-French into the anti-French and then attack them. But no statement that indicates that you can attack a neutral country. I mean, the two just don't align, right? No matter what, though, I think I've got the peace for a couple of turns with Austria. And to be honest, I probably don't need too big a force to knock Austria out if I decide that I can do that. I don't have the will to face this anymore. I think I made up my own rules to cover the gaps, and I'm not sure they're what was intended or not. And I'm even less sure now, because things feel so fucking weird with this, like, yeah, you can declare war on a major power as long as it's not controlled by a player. What? Right, so the English naval phase, they managed to capture another French fleet, or squadron. I don't have any more countermix, so I just killed it. And built, I think we got some more of this here. Whatever. We spent the $3 as well ahead of time, because this is when I take care of this. So I just have to remember that. I do have the attrition check to make. Made sure to blockade that. That's not going to be too bad. Nothing's at war, though, except the English. Because Russia and Prussia both essentially are at peace now. That means there's basically no ground phase at all. Make a check for the U.S. The Brits don't want to do anything. Oh, we got production, but only for the Brits. The Prussians and Russians don't get any. The Brits don't get out of their war, but they do get a production roll, which they actually don't get, and they don't get their production because all their production went to there. And that reduces them 1, 2, 3 back down to 18%. But the French Navy is getting cut to pieces. We may have to focus a little bit more on building it. The French can actually build their Navy more quickly than the Brits can, with all their production cities and everything, if they want to focus on that. So that is one factor to keep in mind, is that we might be able to push the Brits into an uglier situation. I'm going to put this there. I don't get to repair that unless I have a naval point, which I may have, because all my production is being used up, and that's going to be putting me in a... If that keeps happening, that's going to put me in an ugly position. I do have a naval point, and I'll probably want to repair that one as well, using some of my stored production points. Yeah. So that is going to be the end of an era in the game, basically. The first wars are over. Austria can't declare war until it builds its entire force, if I follow the scripting. I don't like that. I don't know if that's meant to be under those circumstances. France can't declare war on Austria because they're run by a player. I don't think I buy that at all. They either should not be allowed to declare war on a neutral, which you could make that argument. You really could, from the Napoleonic Wars, that even in the two-player game, France wouldn't be able to beat up on Austria. And that actually even makes more sense, if anything. I haven't decided which way I'm going with that yet. I'm still playing with it in my mind. France has enough troops that they could very easily move against Austria and knock it out of the war. They won't be allowed to for another turn at the very least. And still go after Spain. You know, they're still shuttling forces over towards Spain. So I don't know. I don't know. You know, if Austria is free to, basically, if Austria is free to attack, I feel like the French should be allowed to attack them. You know, but it also leads to a situation that I was used to in the old game, which is you just keep squashing, you know, Austria and Prussia, and they never get a chance, and they're gonna get their defeats up to 3 in that case, pretty easily. So I don't know. I mean, obviously Austria doesn't want to start a war at this point. The only question is, should France have the right to declare war on Austria again? And I really don't like the solution that's in these rules. In the original rules, they wouldn't, like, by a strict reading of them, I don't think they're allowed to attack Austria, period, the end. So, I don't know. But the attempt to make this a multiplayer game, apparently the majority of French players could knock somebody out of a French alliance and attack them. That's from the original rules. So it's like there's a contradiction built in there. There may be some way of resolving it. But I feel like the intention was that players could attack each other. And the only restriction was it took an extra turn if they were already pro your side to push them out and then make them neutral and then anti your side. We have Sweden, which starting next turn I can start fiddling around with and trying to make them more pro-French. Denmark, we can start trying to make pro-French. Well, Sweden's not going to be pro-French, but it might end up in a war with Russia. What does that do for me? Not much. Like, I want that war to be... France has control over when that starts to happen, and I think they kind of want it to start to happen once Russia could come back into the war. I wasn't allowed to move my Russian troops yet, so they're still in Königsberg, among other places, because they were neutral by the time their turn rolled around. And we're going to load this up, because this is definitely a significant inflection point. Austria and Prussia have both been defeated. Russia has signed the Treaty of Tilsit. France didn't get as much as they did historically. It's taken them longer, I think, than it did historically. You can take a look at some of these scenarios. Like we said, the Austerlitz scenario, but that's only to get to Vienna, ended in December, so that happened too quickly. But this one is the Unit of Friedland, which would have lasted until July 1807. So we probably have we have a victory in that, although, you know, I'm just trying to get a view of where we are in proportion, you know, in relation to the historical attacks, but not getting we did get Saxony. Not getting Westphalia is, I don't know, it's a minor Ouch for the French, I guess. Anyway, gonna load this up, and part of me wants to just stop playing. Yeah, like I started thinking about, sorting through all those old counters and putting them. But again, I'm not sure if there might be like maybe more Navy in this because of the global stuff and everything.